What's up, y'all? My name is Arnold, and I love stories, telling them, and talking about them with beautiful people like you. So this is basically like our own little book club, geek corner on films, anime, whatever. So grab your boba tea and relax and have fun and enjoy this conversation. The story is basically, and this is totally not ChatGPT, 18 Times to Beyond Youthful Days follows Jimmy, a jaded 36-year-old video game developer who, after being fired from his own company, embarks on a journey to Japan to what seems like initially reconnect with his childhood friend named Ami. As Jimmy travels, he relies on the kindness of strangers and reflects on his past, especially the moments shared with Ami, who was once his first love. Through flashbacks, the film contrasts his youthful experiences at 18 with his present life at 36, exploring the emotional turbulence of young love and the impact it had on his journey. Themes of memory, regret, and self-discovery unfold as Jimmy grapples with the choices of his past and their influence on his adult life. Okay, that last sentence was ChatGPT. That was kind of a throwaway. Another thing to note is the film is told in non-linear fashion, which we'll get to in a bit. One thing I really enjoyed was the acting and performances. So Jimmy is essentially a 36-year-old video game developer who's super successful, and he has all the money, he has all the recognition, he's doing something that he loves, but he ends up getting fired. And the reason he gets fired is because he blows up at his employees. Definitely not the best way to get fired, but it kind of shows how sometimes your ambitions can blind you from other goals in life, like treating other people like decent human beings or simply just living your life. So at the beginning of the story, he's facing this sort of straight-laced character, but as he goes on his sabbatical, well, not sabbatical because he got fired, as he's going on his journey to Japan, you know, he meets a lot of people along the way that helps soften him a little bit, and he learns to actually live for once and to not simply just focus on his work. And of course, during his journey, it conjures up really great specific memories, and this is where I want to talk about him as an 18-year-old. The actor pulled this off really well because a trap that a lot of people do in terms of performance is playing the idea of something or playing a caricature of something. You know, the actor, I think he's in his late 20s, early 30s, he could have easily played the 18-year-old kid as just like, I'm just an 18-year-old, I hate life, you know, like that sort of a situation where it's just very superficially and stereotypically childish. But I think he did a great way of balancing that kind of childlike, nonchalant nature, slight awkwardness, while making it still grounded and real. So the contrast of him being like a naive, sort of careless child, that contrasting with like his more straight-laced 36-year-old self was effective. And the impetus for Jimmy to meet Ami during that time was, well, of course, Ami ended up working at this karaoke bar, I believe it was a karaoke bar or area that Jimmy worked at for the summer. Ami just kind of went in there, and one of the main things that connected them was the fact that Jimmy loves anime, like your boy over here, and he was learning Japanese, and Ami is from Japan, so that was a way that they were able to click and connect at first. And Ami also did a wonderful job with her performance. So one thing I love about Ami, which speaks to a lot of the bigger themes of the movie, is, you know, the idea of restraint and, you know, putting up a facade. For example, throughout the first, honestly, like 75% of the movie, you see Ami as an 18-year-old, you know, in his more youthful memories, as this very bright, jovial, adventurous person who leaves a long-lasting impact on Jimmy. She gets Jimmy out of his shell, you know, she inspires him, makes him happy, you know, they explore Taiwan together. It's like such an awesome time. But she truly appears to be like a happy-go-lucky girl, almost kind of like a trope in those romances. I don't know if that's like a bad or a good thing, but her enthusiastic and naive energy is super contagious. It serves as a great foil to Jimmy, but to be honest, we don't really know what her motives are. I'm like, yo, why is this girl happy all the time? Like, well, what is hiding beneath the surface? And spoiler alert, at the end, we realize that, you know, she dies and she has a sickness, and she was holding in that terminal illness the whole entire time. So there are a lot of moments in the movie where if you watch it again, you have this different perspective of it because you know what she's truly saying behind her eyes. For example, the part where they're kind of just at nighttime looking at the whole entire city view or the mountain view, and, you know, she says something along the lines of not knowing what the future will hold, or something along the lines of that. But obviously the subtext behind that is she's saying that she's literally gonna die soon. Or even when Jimmy barges in on her to give her tickets for the movie date, and we find out later it's because she was trying to take meds and she didn't want him to walk in on her. There's a really delicate balance that the actress needs to strike in terms of internalizing all of her pain. For one thing, she's probably accepted the fact that she's gonna die, and she knows it and she's used to it. But at the end of the day, there's also the other side to it where she's a human and she doesn't want to die. And Not only that, but those two different sides are things that she has to keep inside of her and she doesn't show to the mass public. Once again, it goes back to that idea of restraint, where in her eyes you can tell, you can see that there's something else inside that she does not want to say. I also really love how the film plays with the perspective shifting, especially towards the end where we see things from Ami's perspective. For example, one scene that really hit me was oh my gosh, it's in the About You 1975 music video, link in the description down below. You can check it out. But they're essentially sitting down, listening to like one of their favorite bands together. They have an earbob in one ear and each ear like this. And I can kind of recreate it if I had like, never mind. But essentially, they're kind of sitting down. And Jimmy tells Ami very quietly, kind of like to himself, he doesn't want her to hear it. He's like, Ami, or something like that, you know. Basically, like in for y'all who don't speak Mandarin, basically he was saying, Amy, please don't leave, all right? Like, you know, don't leave, because basically she's leaving, for context. And when you initially see that scene, you know, it just seems like him saying it quietly to himself, but they play that scene again much later in the film, towards the end of the film, and we find out that Ami, the camera then pans to Ami, turns out that she was listening to what he was saying and she was internalizing that, and it is just all the more painful to know that she knows all these things, that Jimmy likes her, that she likes Jimmy, but she doesn't want to hurt his feelings and she doesn't want to confront the reality that, you know, they can't be together. So it's really, really tough. This goes to the idea of non-linear storytelling. I think that it was really effective for the film for the reasons that I mentioned before, where at the beginning, you know, we see a lot of it from Jimmy's perspective, but then towards the end we see it from Ami's perspective, and we are then able to piece everything together, like, oh my gosh, she actually wasn't this happy-go-lucky person. And also ultimately there's a big payoff at the end when we realize, oh, she was dead the whole time. That was kind of semi-predictable because of the tropes in films, but either way, I think it's effective when non-linear storytelling is used as a tool to keep us engaged and ask questions, and over time they do slowly answer the questions for you. It's a very creative use of it. The cinematography is also beautiful. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know all the specific technical language. I'm not a filmmaker in that sense. I definitely gotta learn. But it was very much indie, but also super high quality. The juxtaposition between the past and the present, you know, in the past it's very like warm toned, warm color, and then the present is very cold, and it kind of reflects Jimmy, but more importantly, sort of that era in which he was living in. For example, in the past, that warmness when Ami was still alive, there's almost like a youthful nostalgia to it, and it feels very nice to watch. And there's so much camaraderie and banter that's happening between him and Ami and his friends at the karaoke, and like it contributes to the atmosphere as a whole. It's almost like slice of life, while when you put it to the present day, there's almost like a not eerie silence to it, but kind of like a slight melodrama coldness to it, and the juxtaposition works really, really well. And the film was also just super simple. You could take it in. It's not this absurd or crazy convoluted plot, you know. Even though there's non-linear storytelling, it's still pretty much straightforward. You know, a guy recounts the experiences with a girl that he met 18 years ago. And also something I really appreciate about the movie is that even though it's a romance, it didn't have to rely on any kissing or making out or any sex like that to convince me that this was a true relationship, that this is a very loving relationship, you know. I mean, partially because I think the actors had a huge age discrepancy, but you know, it doesn't matter. It just goes to show that a movie can be emotionally impactful, especially a romance, without having the oopy goopy stuff with like the tongue. And some caveats to the film I will mention is that, you know, it's a romance film, so some aspects are a bit cliche and predictable. But I will say this is a very specific, you know, genre of film where it's like a romance and like, you know, star-crossed lovers or whatever. Especially in East Asian cinema, this is very, very common. But once again, I don't think that's a bad thing nor a good thing. It depends on how you see it. If you already accept the fact that this is a very specific stereotypical genre, I think, you know, looking at the positive side, is able to grab a stereotypical tropey drama but then provide a fresh insight into it by making it a lot more grounded, having the nonlinear storytelling, you know, juxtaposing the two different eras. It dealt it with grace. There's also that cliche element of the person who is dying teaches the person who's alive how to live. You know, you see that, I don't want to spoil, but you see that in a bunch of other films as well that I know that are anime or East Asian. And the movie also taught me a lot about traveling. It made me want to travel so much. I was talking to my partner about this, like, yo, I just want to quit my job and just like go to Japan and tell stories and like wander a little bit. You know, I have traveled a lot, but not as much, especially, coming straight out of college. There's so much academic structure and just structure in general. You know, for someone in my 20s, I definitely want to travel more. I think I want to do that in my 20s or also all my life. But it is hard, of course, due to money and practical reasons, but it definitely inspired me to slow down and get out of my comfort zone that way. And there are also just so many wholesome moments with him, meeting all these new people while he's traveling. That one Japanese dude in the train, oh my gosh, he was so adorable and so funny and contrasted Jimmy's nature so well. When they were doing the snowball fight and everything, Jimmy was kind of reliving his youth again. And that's what travel does, right? Especially because Jimmy, video game developer, CEO, working so hard all the time, he kind of forgets all those more simple, not poignant, but simple, wholesome moments from his past that make you happy. So for example, for me, growing up, I loved playing Pokemon. I loved, playing piano, singing, and, building Legos and stuff. But as you grow older, you start to attend to more practical things. And now I'm trying to intentionally implement those things, even just for a few minutes every day, to just, channel in my inner child, because creating is such a beautiful part of life. But yeah, because of the traveling, he relied on the kindness of strangers along the way. I know, slightly cliche, but he also had such amazing camaraderie and banter with his friends at the karaoke. And that reminds me of also the good old days too, back in high school, where I'm just bantering with the guys and we're just chilling around, low responsibilities. We took an exam, we go to I was about to say go to the bar. No, I don't even drink. But we go to the diner, we go to the mall, we watch a movie together, and all those things are just super, oh my gosh, the movie is such a good movie. Another thing is how our ambitions in life can blind us from what truly matters in life. And it's a bit cliche, what do I know? I'm in my 20s, but I think relationships matter a lot. And in this movie especially, it shows how no matter how short a relationship interaction can be. For example, Ami and Jimmy literally only met for those few months, but those few months had such a long lasting impact on Jimmy, such that he still remembers her and he's visiting her nearly 2 decades later. And if anything, she was the impetus to him, where she was like, hey, what is your dream? Please promise me that you're going to pursue it. And he even says that it's because of you, Ami, that even though you're dead, I'm pursuing this dream of video game development, even though I can't play basketball because I have an injury or whatever. And it's funny because she teaches him to pursue his passion even though she's dead, and he ends up taking it a little bit overboard and ironically blinding himself from the relationships that matter to him. So it's really interesting how there's some nuance to that. That one summer was enough for her to have her last pretty much few months on this earth in a meaningful and intentional way, while setting your boy Jimmy to start off with another beautiful chapter in his life. I could have said that more eloquently, but basically that summer was a beautiful end, was the beautiful last chapter in her book, and was a great beginning chapter in his book. We'll cut that to make it editor. We don't have an editor, we don't have the budget for that, but just whatever. It's casual. Another thing is living to survive versus surviving to live. Despite the fact that she was dying, she used it as an opportunity to travel and to draw things, and that passion for drawing and travel eventually, impacted Jimmy. And once again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, impacted Jimmy for better or for worse. And made him lose sight of some of his other goals, but either way, it still taught him to live to an extent. And there's also that element of just slowing down. There's that quote about, rest paving the way for your life or whatever. I definitely gotta rewatch these movies before I do this again, but it's about taking stock, slowing down in your life, self-reflecting on what truly matters to you. And wow, honestly, I'm out of words. This was a great movie. Other movies that are similar to it are Drawing Closer, You're the Apple of My Eye, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, 5 centimeters per second. We Live in Time is a recent movie. It's not Asian, but I think it's somewhat similar. But those movies also relate to it, but I love it so much. I think it's a great indie romance drama that balances slice of life elements with more melodramatic elements. Really great example of East Asian cinema. Great performances. It'll make you feel something, even though it's a bit stereotypical or whatever of a genre. I think it approaches it with a newness that I think you'll enjoy. And honestly, watch the About You 1975 thing as well. And please, more than anything, leave your thoughts down below, because I've just been rambling and saying whatever. A lot of my things are pretty much just like English seminar rambling cold call situation. But thank you for watching this video. Let me know what else you want me to review or talk about or watch. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this can be a part of your youthful days. I do not know what that means. Ami, 不要走好不好?